Jake Morrison shifted in his chair for the 100th time. The seat was designed for beings much taller than humans, leaving his feet barely touching the floor.
Ow.
Around the massive circular table sat dozens of alien delegates, their strange forms, casting odd shadows under the chamber's artificial lights. The air recycling system hummed constantly, trying to maintain an atmosphere that could support 30 different species. 18 hours. That's how long they had been sitting in this room on Nexus Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Council. 18 hours of the same arguments, the same dismissive words, the same condescending tones directed at humanity. Jake's translator earpiece buzzed with each new insult, though the aliens probably thought they were being diplomatic. "Your species simply lacks the proper evolution for peaceful solutions," said Veltar, the Zephyrian delegate. "Like living crystal, tall and thin, with light pulsing through his transparent skin? Violence appears to be your only response to conflict." Jake clenched his fists under the table. Captain Lisa Hayes, sitting to his right as military advisor, gave him a warning look. She had seen that expression before during the border wars against the pirates. Her own jaw was tight with barely controlled anger. The Altarian Prime Minister, a blob-like creature with multiple ice talks, rippled in what Jake had learned was their version of agreement. "Perhaps we should consider placing human colonies under protective supervision, for their own good, of course." Jake's pen snapped. In his grip, Lisa placed a steadying hand on his arm, but her eyes were just as angry. They had come here 3 years ago with hope. Earth had finally been invited to join the Great Galactic Council, to take humanity's place among the stars alongside civilizations. Thousands of years older, what they found instead was a bureaucratic nightmare run by species who had forgotten how to fight. Every proposal humanity made was rejected. Every warning they gave was ignored. Every time they tried to discuss the real threats facing the galaxy, they were told to be quiet and let the adults talk. The worst part was the Void Swarm. Jake had shown them the data 17 times, 17 briefings about the massive entities, consuming entire star systems at the galaxy's edge. 17 presentations about civilizations that had simply vanished, leaving behind empty space where once there had been billions of lives. Each time the Council dismissed the threat. Exaggerated human paranoia, they called it. Primitive fear responses. They preferred to believe the missing civilizations had simply moved to another galaxy by choice. The cultural rehabilitation program would be beneficial for all parties, continued the Altarian, his ice talks waving in Jake's direction. Humans show promise, but their aggressive tendencies need correction. A murmur of agreement rippled around the table. The hegemony delegate, an insect-like being with compound eyes, clicked its mandibles in approval. "We have successfully rehabilitated 47 species over the past millennium. The process is quite effective." Jake thought about Earth. About the children playing in parks, the families gathered around dinner tables, scientists working to unlock the mysteries of the universe. He thought about the colonies on Mars and Europa, the mining stations in the asteroid belt, the exploration ships pushing toward the outer planets, all of it built by human hands, human minds, human determination. These aliens wanted to fix that. They wanted to sand away everything that made humanity human. Captain Hayes leaned closer and whispered, "The transport ships are ready if we need them." She had been preparing for this moment for weeks, seeing the same writing on the wall that Jake saw. The Centauri delegate, resembling a walking tree with silver bark, spoke in slow, measured tones. "The human military doctrine is particularly concerning. Their focus on individual initiative and flexible tactics suggests deep psychological instability." "Agreed," said Veltar. "Proper military forces follow established hierarchies and proven strategies. This human concept of adapting during battle is chaotic and dangerous." Jake almost laughed. These were the same species that had lost contact with 17 civilizations in the past year. Their proven strategies seemed to involve surrendering at the first sign of real trouble and holding committee meetings to discuss. Why surrender was actually the wisest choice. The chamber's main screen displayed a tactical map of the galaxy. Red zones marked areas where the Council had lost contact with member species. The red zones were growing larger every week, creeping closer to the core worlds where these delegates lived in comfortable safety. Jake had submitted battle plans for joint operations to investigate the threat. Military experts from Earth had volunteered to lead scouting missions into the danger zones. They had offered to share human military technology and tactics with any species willing to fight. Back against whatever was destroying civilizations, every offer was rejected. Every plan was dismissed. Every volunteer was told to go home and let the proper authorities handle things. "Perhaps," said the Wolfen delegate, speaking for the first time in hours, "we should listen to the humans. My people have also detected strange signals from the outer rim." The Wolfen were warriors, descendants of pack hunters who had learned to travel between stars. They were one of the few species in the council who still maintained a real military. They were also routinely ignored by the elder races. "The Wolfen are hardly qualified to comment on galactic security," sniffed Veltar. "Their barbaric culture is almost as concerning as humanity's." That was the last straw. Jake Morrison stood up slowly, his chair scraping against the polished floor. The massive chamber fell silent. Dozens of alien eyes turned toward him, some curious, others annoyed at the interruption. He reached up and removed his translator earpiece. The small device that had carried so many insults over the past 3 years, he placed it carefully on the table next to his diplomatic credentials. Then he looked around the chamber, meeting as many alien gazes as he could. "Earth withdraws from these proceedings," he said in clear, strong English. "We will handle our own affairs from now on." The universal translators around the chamber struggled with his tone, but the meaning was unmistakable. Several delegates began speaking at once, their voices rising in confusion and alarm. Jake didn't listen to the translations. He didn't need to. He turned and walked toward the chamber's main exit. Captain Hayes followed immediately, her boots clicking on the floor in perfect military rhythm. Behind them, the rest of the human delegations stood and followed their ambassador out of the chamber as they reached the doorway. Oh, gosh. The aliens were in chaos, arguing among themselves, gesturing wildly with tentacles and appendages and crystalline limbs. In all the confusion, none of them were looking at the tactical display. The red zones had grown larger while they talked. The news traveled faster than the fastest starships. Within 6 hours of Jake Morrison's dramatic exit from the Galactic Council chambers, emergency meetings were being called on every major world in 3 galaxy arms, communication networks, that normally carried routine trade reports and diplomatic pleasantries, now buzzed with panicked messages. Hi, Chancellor Zixmoth of the Hegemony sat in his private office on the moon of Kepler 7, his 6 arms moving rapidly across multiple control panels. The insect-like leader had ruled the hegemony for 2 centuries, and in all that time, no species had ever walked away from council membership. It simply didn't happen. Every civilization in the galaxy wanted to join the council. It was the natural order of things, yet the humans had done exactly that. It's worse, they had done it in full view of dozens of other delegates, so many of whom were now asking uncomfortable questions about why human concerns had been dismissed. So Isley Zixmoth's communication screen lit up with an incoming priority message from Nexus Prime. Veltar's crystalline face appeared. His usual calm shattered. Light pulsed erratically through his transparent features, a sure sign of stress among his people. "Chancellor, we have a serious problem," Veltar said without the usual diplomatic greeting. "The Regelian delegation is requesting private meetings with human representatives. The Wolfen have already left Nexus Prime, claiming urgent business in their home sector. 3 minor species have submitted formal requests to suspend their council membership pending review." Zixmoth's compound eyes focused on the screen. In 200 years of leadership, he had never seen the council's carefully maintained order challenged like this. What exactly are these species saying? They're asking why we ignored human intelligence about the Outer Rim disappearances. They want to know why we dismissed their military offers. Some are even suggesting that our peaceful approach might not be working. The connection ended, leaving Zixmoth alone with his growing concern. He pulled up the classified reports about The missing civilizations. 17 confirmed losses in the past standard year. The official explanation blamed natural phenomena or voluntary relocations. But the pattern was becoming harder to ignore. Meanwhile on Earth, President Robert Carter sat in the Oval Office reviewing Jake Morrison's encrypted report. The holographic display showed the ambassador aboard his transport ship, already 3 days out from Nexus Prime. Secretary of Defense Margaret Bell stood beside the president's desk, her tablet displaying preliminary military assessments. They never intended to take us seriously, Jake explained, his face tired but determined. Every proposal we made was labeled as aggressive. Every warning was dismissed as primitive paranoia. They want to fix us, not work with us. President Carter nodded slowly. What's our next move? We prepare for the worst, Jake replied. The Council won't act on the Outer Rim threat. We need to be ready to handle it ourselves. Secretary Bell pulled up her own reports. Admiral Wright has been receiving some interesting communications. Several alien military officers are reaching out through unofficial channels. It seems not everyone in the galaxy agrees with their governments. The Secretary was right. Admiral Paul Wright of the Earth Defense Force had been surprised by the number of private messages arriving on secure frequencies. Captain Nina Torres of the exploration vessel Columbia had forwarded a coded transmission from her Rigelian contacts, requesting a secret meeting to discuss matters of mutual concern. Similar messages had come from junior officers in the Centauri Republic, mid-level administrators in the Altarian government, and even a few scientists from the crystalline Zephyrian research stations. They all shared a common theme: growing concern about their leader's refusal to acknowledge the mounting evidence of a real threat. Dr. Sam Rodriguez, head of xenobiology at the Luna Institute, had been analyzing alien communication patterns for weeks. His computers processed thousands of intercepted messages, looking for changes in behavior and communication frequency. What he found was disturbing. The panic is spreading through their networks like a virus, he reported to Admiral Wright during their weekly briefing. Species that haven't communicated with each other in decades are suddenly exchanging urgent messages. The younger civilizations are asking questions their elders can't answer. The data showed a clear pattern. The elder races, those who had founded the Galactic Council millennia ago, were retreating into isolation. Their communication traffic had dropped by 60%. They were pulling back to their home systems, canceling trade agreements, and recalling their exploration fleets. The younger species, those admitted to the Council within the last few centuries, were doing the opposite. Their communication traffic had tripled. They were reaching out to each other, sharing information their governments preferred to keep secret, and asking pointed questions about Council policies. On the mining station orbiting Rigel Prime, Commander Jethka read the latest intelligence reports with growing alarm. His people had been members of the Galactic Council for 800 years, but they remembered what it was like to be independent. They remembered how to make their own decisions. The humans had impressed Jethka during their brief time on the Council. Unlike the elder species, they shared their technology freely, offered genuine military assistance, and treated younger civilizations as equals rather than children. When they warned about threats, they backed up their words with data and offered real solutions. Now, the humans were gone, and the threats they had warned about were becoming impossible to ignore. Jethka activated his personal communication array and sent a coded message to Captain Torres aboard the Columbia. The message was simple: we need to talk. Back on Nexus Prime, the emergency session had been going on for 12 hours. It's a great chamber that had hosted diplomatic discussions for thousands of years was now filled with angry voices and accusations. Species that had maintained polite silence for centuries were suddenly demanding answers. Why were human military assessments classified? Demanded the Corvin ambassador, his metallic voice echoing through the chamber. If there's no real threat, why hide the evidence? The humans offered to share their defensive technologies, added the representative from Epsilon Eridani. Why were these offers rejected without review? Veltar tried to maintain order, but his usual authority was cracking. The careful hierarchy that kept the Council functioning depended on the assumption that all species desperately wanted membership. That assumption was no longer valid. The Council has maintained galactic peace for 3,000 years, he announced, his crystalline form pulsing with authority. Our methods are proven and effective. Tell that to the 17 civilizations that vanished this year, came a voice from the back of the chamber. The comment sent a ripple of unease through the assembled delegates. For the first time in council history, member species were openly questioning the elder race's wisdom. In the silence that followed, everyone was thinking the same thing. The humans had been right to leave. Commander Alex Thompson was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm started screaming. Kepler Station, humanity's most distant monitoring post, sat at the very edge of known space. For 2 years, Alex had watched empty star fields and filed routine reports. Nothing ever happened out here. Today was different. The massive sensor array detected gravitational waves unlike anything in the database. Alex dropped his coffee mug and rushed to the main console. The readings were impossible. Something huge was moving through space, bending gravity itself as it traveled. "Get me Earth Command," Alex ordered his communications officer. "Priority Alpha, tell them the readings were right. The human warnings had been correct. Something was coming from beyond the galaxy's edge, and it was bigger than anyone had imagined. Within hours, the first visual confirmation arrived. The Kepler station's long-range telescopes captured images that made Alex's blood run cold. The void swarm wasn't a fleet of ships or a natural phenomenon. It was a living nightmare. Massive biomechanical entities stretched across entire star systems. They looked like a cross between machines and sea creatures, with metal tentacles reaching between planets and mechanical mouths that could swallow moons. Where they passed, star systems simply vanished. Not destroyed, not conquered completely. Consumed, leaving behind empty space. Alex watched in horror as the outer colonies of the Andorian collective disappeared from all sensors. 3 billion lives gone in less than 6 hours. The swarm had consumed everything. Planets, ships, space stations, even the asteroids and cosmic dust. Nothing remained but void. The emergency transmission to Earth carried the worst possible news. The void swarm had breached the galactic barrier 3 months ahead of schedule. It was moving faster than predicted, growing larger with each system it consumed, and heading straight for the populated sectors on Earth. Admiral Lisa Hayes. Read the reports in her new office at Defense Command. Her promotion had come through just days after humanity's withdrawal from the Council. Now she faced the job of defending not just Earth, but potentially the entire galaxy. Activate Project Fortress, she ordered her staff. Full deployment. All sectors. Project Fortress had been humanity's secret preparation during their 3 years with the Council. While alien diplomats had dismissed human military doctrine as primitive, Earth's engineers had been building the most advanced defensive network in galactic history. The project used humanity's greatest advantage, their ability to think differently. Instead of following established military traditions like the other species, humans had studied every available piece of data about galactic warfare and designed something completely new: hidden stations. Throughout human space came online. Weapons platforms that looked like asteroids powered up their systems. Entire moons revealed themselves to be massive defense installations. The network had been built in secret using human mining operations as cover. Captain Rachel Stone received her orders aboard the battleship Washington. Her mission was simple but terrifying. Take the first human fleet to the Outer Rim and evacuate as many survivors as possible. This isn't about territory or politics, Admiral Hayes explained during the briefing. This is about saving lives. Any lives, regardless of species. Rachel's tactical officer, Lieutenant Ben Parker, studied the evacuation routes. Admiral, the Galactic Council hasn't issued any evacuation orders. Most species don't even know what's coming, then we tell them, Rachel replied. And we get them out whether their governments approve or not. The Washington led a fleet of 50 ships toward the disaster zone, unlike Council fleets, which moved in rigid formations and followed predetermined routes. The human fleet adapted constantly. Each ship captain had authority to make independent decisions, something that horrified alien military observers but proved incredibly effective. Captain Maria Santos commanded one of the evacuation transports. Her ship, the Liberty, was designed to carry cargo, but Maria had modified it to house refugees. She didn't care if they were human, alien, or something in between. If they needed rescue, she would find room. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council finally acknowledged what they could no longer ignore. Emergency sessions convened on Nexus Prime as reports flooded in from the Outer Rim. The carefully controlled information. Networks could no longer hide the truth. Entire civilizations were vanishing. But the Council's response revealed the fundamental weakness in their system. Instead of organizing a defense, the elder races began retreating to their core worlds. Ancient evacuation protocols existed, but only for Council members. The detailed plans assumed that younger civilizations would be left behind to slow down whatever threat was approaching. "We must preserve the center of galactic civilization," announced High Chancellor Zixmoth during the emergency session. Strategic. Withdrawal to the core systems is the only logical response. The Wolfen delegate, Fleet Commander Targeth, stood up in disgust. His people were warriors who had never learned to retreat. "You would abandon billions of lives to save yourselves. The greater good requires difficult choices," replied Veltar, his crystalline form pulsing with false calm. "We cannot save everyone." Dr. Ellen Foster, Earth's expert on swarm behavior, made a terrifying discovery while analyzing the attack. Patterns. The Void Swarm wasn't just consuming matter randomly. It was learning, adapting, becoming more efficient with each system it destroyed. Worse, the swarm seemed to prefer certain types of targets. Systems that offered no resistance were consumed quickly and completely. But areas where the local population tried to fight back were attacked differently, as if the swarm was studying their defensive techniques. "It's not just eating," Ellen reported to Admiral Hayes. "It's gathering intelligence. Every battle, every defense, every evacuation, the swarm is learning from all of it." The implications were staggering. Council's strategy of peaceful surrender wasn't just useless against this enemy. It was actually helping the swarm become stronger as the Washington fleet reached the Outer Rim. Rachel Stone saw the results of the Council's appeasement policy. Refugee ships fled in all directions, their crews panicked and disorganized. Most didn't even know where to go. Their governments had never prepared evacuation plans. Believing that diplomacy could solve any problem, Lieutenant Parker coordinated with the refugee fleets, but the communications were chaos. Dozens of different languages, incompatible technologies, and no unified command structure. The Council's peaceful hierarchy had never needed to handle a real crisis. "Liberty to Washington," came Maria Santos's voice over the radio. "Got it. 3,000 Altarian civilians on board. Their government ships left them behind. Understood, Liberty. Take them to Rally, Point 7. Rachel watched her fleet work with pride. Human ships moved between the refugee vessels, providing escort, medical aid, and organization. Her crews didn't ask about species or political affiliation. It just saved lives. But even as they worked, the Void Swarm grew closer. Rachel's sensors showed the massive entities approaching the next system, already reaching out with mechanical tentacles to begin consumption. The real battle was about to begin, and humanity was the only species that seemed ready to fight. The first ship to arrive at Earth wasn't what anyone expected. Fleet Commander Targeth of the Wolfen clans brought his battlecruiser Fang of Winter directly to Luna Station. Ignoring all diplomatic protocols, the massive vessel, built like a steel wolf with weapon ports for teeth, had never been seen in human space before. General Chris Baker, Earth's new liaison for independent species, met the Wolfen commander in the station's main docking bay. Targeth was exactly what Baker had imagined, 7 feet tall, covered in gray fur, with yellow eyes that seemed to see everything. He moved like a predator, but his manner was respectful. General Baker, Targeth said in accented but clear English, "My people have watched humans fight. We approve. The Council calls us both barbarians, so perhaps barbarians should work together." Baker studied the alien warrior. The Wolfen had been marginalized by the Council for centuries because they refused to abandon their military traditions. They believed in honor, courage, and protecting the weak. Values that aligned perfectly with human military doctrine. "What do you propose, Commander?" Target activated a holographic display showing the outer rim. Red zones marked areas where the Void Swarm had already struck. Blue zones showed regions still under threat. My ships are fast and strong, but few in number. Your ships are clever and adaptable, but need more firepower. Together, we might save some lives. The alliance began that day, within a week. Other species started arriving at Earth. The Corvan Empire sent their heavy cruisers, built like flying fortresses with armor 3 feet thick. The free traders of Epsilon Eridani brought their converted merchant vessels. Fast and maneuverable ships, perfect for rescue operations. Most surprising were the survivor fleets. Ships from consumed worlds had somehow escaped the Void Swarm and traveled across the galaxy seeking help. Their crews brought first-hand knowledge of how the swarm operated. Information the Council refused to share. Captain Pete Collins of the Destroyer Phoenix found himself working alongside alien crews for the first time. His ship had been assigned to patrol duty with a Wolfen Pack cruiser called Iron Fang. The two vessels made an odd pair. The sleek human destroyer and the brutal-looking alien warship. Human ship Phoenix, this is Iron Fang, came the voice of the Wolfen captain over the radio. We detect 3 Altarian refugee vessels. They appear to be under attack. Pete checked his sensors. The refugee ships were broadcasting distress signals. But their messages were being jammed by something else, something that wasn't showing up on normal scanners. Iron Fang, I'm reading interference patterns consistent with swarm scouts. They're not alone out there. The two ships moved in perfect coordination, despite never having worked together before. The Phoenix used its advanced sensors to track the nearly invisible swarm's scouts, while Iron Fang's heavy weapons cleared the immediate threat. Within minutes, they had the refugee ships safely under escort. Lieutenant Amy Walsh, Pete's communications officer, worked around the clock to establish secure networks between the growing coalition. The Council's communication systems were too easily monitored, so the humans had developed new encryption methods based on constantly changing mathematical codes. It's like building a new language every day, Amy explained to her Corvan counterpart, Engineer Vextal. The massive alien, built like a walking tank with 4 arms, found human communication methods fascinating. Your species adapts quickly. Vextal rumbled in his deep voice. Council species follow the same patterns for centuries. You change as needed. The breakthrough came when Dr. Sam Rodriguez received an encrypted message from an unexpected source. Gelinara, a Zephyrian scientist, had been secretly studying the Void Swarm for decades. Her crystalline people were known for their advanced research capabilities, but their government had classified all swarm-related studies to avoid causing panic. The swarm is not what the Council believes, Gelinar explained during a secure holographic meeting. Her crystal form flickered with nervous energy. It does not consume randomly. It learns from each encounter, growing stronger and more intelligent. Dr. Rodriguez leaned forward, intrigued. What kind of intelligence are we dealing with? A hive mind, but more complex than anything we have encountered. Each consumed civilization adds to its knowledge base. It now knows the weaknesses of 43 different species. It understands Council military doctrine better than most Council officers. The implications were terrifying. Every peaceful surrender had taught the swarm more about galactic defenses. Every evacuation had revealed evacuation routes and emergency protocols. The Council's appeasement strategy had been feeding intelligence to the enemy for decades. Admiral Condray's that humanity's greatest advantage wasn't their technology or tactics, was their ability to unite former enemies against a common threat. While the Council fractured under pressure, with elder races retreating to their core worlds and younger species left to fend for themselves, humanity was building something new. The coalition that formed around Earth was based on mutual respect rather than hierarchical submission. Wolfen warriors shared battle tactics with human marines. Corvan engineers worked alongside Earth technicians to upgrade weapon systems. Free trader pilots taught human crews new navigation techniques through dangerous space. Commander Alex Thompson, still monitoring the galaxy's edge from Kepler Station, noticed something unprecedented in his latest reports. The Void Swarm was changing its behavior. Instead of consuming everything in its path, it was beginning to avoid certain sectors. "Admiral, you need to see this," Alex reported during the daily briefing. "The swarm is steering around areas defended by coalition forces. It's like it's avoiding us." Admiral Hayes studied the tactical displays. The pattern was clear once you knew what to look for. Systems defended by human-led coalitions were being bypassed while Council territories continued to be consumed at an alarming rate. Dr. Ellen Foster had been analyzing swarm behavior patterns and came to a startling conclusion. "The swarm prefers easy targets," she explained to the assembled coalition leaders. "It's programmed to seek maximum consumption. With minimum effort, species that don't fight back are perfect prey." Fleet Commander Targeth's yellow eyes gleamed with understanding. "It fears us, not fears," Dr. Foster corrected. "Calculates. We represent a poor cost-benefit ratio. Fight back too effectively for the swarm to consider us worth the effort." Captain Maria Santos, still running evacuation missions with the Liberty, had noticed the same pattern. "The refugee ships I'm picking up are all from Council space. The areas where we've established joint patrols haven't lost a single system." The coalition was working, but it was still small compared to the vast Galactic Council. Hundreds of species remained under Council protection, trusting in diplomatic solutions that had never worked against the swarm. As reports came in of 3 more star systems vanishing from Council space, the coalition leaders gathered for an emergency meeting. The question was no longer whether they could defend themselves, but whether they could convince the rest of the galaxy to abandon failed strategies and join the fight. General Baker looked around the conference room at the assembled alien commanders. Wolfen warriors sat beside human officers. Corvan engineers shared data with free trader navigators. Species that had been enemies for centuries were now working together because they shared a common enemy and a common goal. "The Council will never admit they were wrong," Targeth observed. "Their pride is stronger than their survival instinct." "Then we save who we can and prepare for the worst," Admiral Hayes replied. "Because if the Council falls, we'll be all that stands between the swarm and the rest of the galaxy." Outside the conference room windows, Earth hung in space like a blue marble. Around it, ships from a dozen different species formed defensive formations, their crews working together to prepare for a battle that would determine the fate of civilization itself. The distress signal from Nexus Prime arrived at Earth just as Admiral Lisa Hayes was reviewing the latest battle reports. The message was brief and desperate. "Council capital under attack. Defensive fleet destroyed. Request immediate assistance." Transmission came from High Chancellor Zixmoth himself, the same insect-like leader who had dismissed human warnings for 3 years. His compound eyes showed fear as he spoke directly to President Carter. "The Void Swarm has reached the core worlds. Nexus Prime will fall within hours. We need your help." President Carter's response was immediate and decisive. "All sentient beings deserve protection, regardless of politics." Admiral Hayes, prepare for Operation Lighthouse. Operation Lighthouse was humanity's largest military deployment in history. Every available ship, from massive battleships to small rescue vessels, would converge on the galactic core. The mission wasn't conquest or revenge, it was salvation. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of her flagship, the carrier Enterprise, as the human fleet assembled around her. Hundreds of ships formed into battle groups. Each group included vessels from coalition species: Wolfon battlecruisers, Corvan heavy destroyers, free trader scout ships, and survivor vessels from consumed worlds. "All ships, this is Admiral Hayes," she broadcast to the assembled fleet. "Today we fight not for territory or politics, but for the right of all species to exist. We go to Nexus Prime not as conquerors, but as protectors." The journey to the galactic core took 18 hours at maximum jump speed. During the trip, Captain Rachel Stone prepared her battleship Washington for the most important mission of her career. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Ben Parker, coordinated with refugee transport Captain Maria Santos to organize the largest evacuation operation in galactic history. "The estimates are grim," Lieutenant Parker reported. "Nexus Prime has a population of 12 billion beings from over 100 different species. Even if we win the battle, evacuating that many people will take days. Captain Stone studied the tactical displays, and we make sure the battle lasts long enough. When the human fleet arrived at Nexus Prime, they found a scene of devastation. The planet's orbital defenses were gone, consumed by massive biomechanical tentacles that reached through space like the arms of some cosmic octopus. Swarm entities, the size of moons, circled the world, their mechanical mouths opening to begin the final consumption. The Council's defensive fleet was scattered, debris floating in space. Only a few alien ships remained, desperately trying to evacuate government officials while leaving billions of civilians behind. Captain Stone's Washington arrived first. Diving straight into the swarm formation, our crew had studied every available piece of data about swarm tactics, and they knew the entity's weakness. They were programmed to avoid unnecessary losses. All weapons, target the feeding appendages, Stone ordered. Make them pay for every bite. The Washington's guns blazed with concentrated fire. Severing several of the massive tentacles reaching toward Nexus Prime, the swarm entities recoiled, their hive mind calculating the unexpected resistance. Lieutenant Parker coordinated with Maria Santos as the Liberty and dozens of other transport ships began evacuating civilians from the planet's surface. Unlike the Council's evacuation, which prioritized government officials and wealthy citizens, the human-led operation focused on saving everyone possible. Liberty to Washington, we've got incoming refugees from the southern continent, mostly Altarian families with children. Copy that, Liberty. Phoenix Squadron will provide escort. Captain Pete Collins led his destroyer and 3 Wolfen vessels to protect the evacuation transports. The alien warriors fought with savage efficiency, their weapons tearing through swarm scouts that tried to interfere with the rescue operation. General Chris Baker's coalition fleet arrived as reinforcements, turning the tide of battle. Corvin. Heavy cruisers engaged the largest swarm entities while free trader ships used their speed and agility to rescue survivors from damaged orbital stations. The battle became legendary not for its size, but for its purpose. The human fleet didn't fight to win territory or destroy enemies. They fought to save lives, to buy time for evacuations, to protect beings who couldn't protect themselves. Dr. Ellen Foster, monitoring the battle from Earth, made a crucial discovery. About the swarm's behavior? Admiral, the swarm is showing signs of confusion. Their hive mind can't understand why we're sacrificing ourselves for beings that aren't even our own species. The confusion became critical when Commander Alex Thompson volunteered for a suicide mission. Monitoring station had detected the swarm's main communication node, a massive entity that coordinated all the others. If it could be destroyed, the entire swarm would be thrown into chaos. I can get close enough in a fast ship, Alex reported. But it's a one-way trip. Captain Collins overheard the transmission from his position near the evacuation zone. Negative, Commander. The Phoenix will handle it. Before anyone could stop him, Pete Collins broke formation and accelerated toward the swarm's heart. His destroyer, loaded with every explosive device his crew could find, raced through the mechanical tentacles reaching for Nexus Prime. Lieutenant Amy Walsh, his communications officer, stayed at her post, despite knowing the mission's outcome. Phoenix to all ships. Tell my family I died doing something that mattered. The Phoenix rammed into the swarm's communication node at full speed. The explosion tore through space like a miniature star, and suddenly every swarm entity stopped moving. The hive mind, shocked by the concept of deliberate self-sacrifice for others, experienced something like confusion. The hesitation lasted only minutes, but it was enough. Captain Stone's battle group pressed their advantage, driving the swarm away from Nexus Prime while evacuation ships completed their missions. Maria Santos alone saved over 50,000 civilians, of dozens. Different species, when the swarm finally retreated to regroup, they left behind something unprecedented, a defended world with most of its population intact. In the aftermath, as rescue ships continued evacuating refugees and medical teams treated the wounded, High Chancellor Zixmoth met with Admiral Hayes in the ruins of the council chambers. "Your people saved us," the insect leader said, his compound eyes showing. "Something that might have been shame. We dismissed you as barbarians, but you fought and died for beings who had treated you with contempt. Admiral Hayes looked around the damaged chamber where Jake Morrison had walked out months earlier. We fought for what we believe in. Every sentient being has the right to exist, to choose their own path, to live free from fear. The Galactic Council, as it had existed for millennia, was finished. The old hierarchy based on age and supposed wisdom had crumbled when faced with real crisis. But from its ashes, something new was being born. Jake Morrison returned to the rebuilt chambers, not as a supplicant seeking approval, but as an equal partner in a truly galactic community. The new federation would be based on cooperation rather than hierarchy, on mutual respect rather than condescending guidance. Months later, children of dozens of species played together in the gardens of New Nexus, rebuilt with help from every member of the new alliance. Their parents, human and alien alike, worked side by side planning joint missions to push back the darkness between the stars. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the most civilized response to an uncivilized threat is the willingness to fight. For those who cannot fight for themselves, and sometimes the species everyone calls barbarians, are the ones who understand civilization best of all.